Hello guys and welcome back to the Perpetua podcast. It's your host James Rankin here, joined today by
Sarah Rowe.
Sarah Rowe. Thank you for joining us. I've kind of hemmed and hawed about asking you, and then I just bit the bullet on Friday. I was like, if you're moving away, I need to get her in beforehand. Sarah, for those who don't know, give us a bit of background. Who are you? What do you do?
So I am from Mayo. I play football, Gaelic football, with Mayo, and then I also play Australian rules in Australia, which is semi-professional. So I basically do 6 months in Ireland, 6 months in Australia, in Melbourne, and I also have a bit of a soccer background as well. So
I didn't know that.
Did you not? No, yeah, I played soccer for a good few years for a few teams up in Dublin, like Shells, Raheny, teams like that. So yeah, just kind of, I suppose, throw my hand at a few, just throw my hand at a few different sports, whichever one will have me.
Savage. Cool. I love it. So you said kind of semi-pro. I just look at you as a professional athlete.
I try my best.
That a lot?
I try my best to, I suppose, like, you're given a lot of training, and, you know, at the moment I'm logging it into an app, but, like, you know, there's at least 3 or 4 double days there a week, and so you've maybe 15-16 hours of training to get through a week, so it kind of feels like it's professional. And all that is, then it's like, what extra work do you want to put in yourself? And that's down to, like, you know, the stuff that people mightn't see, like, you know, the skills sessions, the nutrition side of things, the I suppose even psychologists, like all that kind of other stuff that takes a lot of time as well out of your day. So for me, it probably feels like, you know, it's full time, but I was doing a small bit of work up here as well over the last couple of months, but it's definitely been hard to balance both.
Let's get into that balance. I love that. I think that's what I'm going to rename the podcast. So you've done a little bit of work. You're in here training flat out. Then we've had good conversations like around your psychology stuff and like mindset and all that, and then your nutrition as well. And you want to recover, and you want to get your sleep in, and you want to live a little and socialize a little, especially before you go away. Like how do you find that balance side of things and still enjoy life while maximizing what you want to do professionally too?
Yeah, I think it's about creating daily habits for yourself that, you know, can allow you to live your life a certain way and to kind of switch off from, you know, from any outside noise at all. But for me, it's like, you know, make sure that I journal probably every day. I, you know, write down, like, you know, the things that I hold myself accountable to, and that's, you know, that I'm training, that I'm accountable to myself, because sometimes you are training a lot alone and you need to be accountable to yourself. And if you're writing it down, I just feel like it's easier to kind of, you know, reflect and see where you're at, see where you were a few weeks ago and where you are now. Also keeping track of numbers and stuff, and, like, you know, what weight you're lifting, like what scores you're getting running wise and all that, I think is really important. So it's about being accountable to that, to my nutrition, to I suppose the way I'm communicating myself in my mind as well is a huge one for me, and I think it's one that sometimes we neglect, but I suppose little conversations that you're almost having with yourself are very important to me as well, but the nutrition side of things and the hydration and stuff, like, you know, making sure that I control the controllables and that they're done really well, and then that allows me to live my life and I suppose enjoy time and, you know, enjoy connection with friends and family, and that's really important too. And I suppose there's also kind of, you know, as an athlete, you can get really caught up in your routine and nearly have too many rules around what a good routine looks like. And if you don't, you know, I suppose live up to that every day, sometimes you know, you kick yourself. So for me, sometimes I nearly have to challenge my inflexibility. So by doing that, I sometimes, you know, would do something that would be like out of character for me. And that would be my way of actually kind of resetting my mind versus me actually doing something a bit off the wall. And that gets
you back on the street.
Yeah, kind of, it's just like, you can't always be serious, and you need to make sure that you do have a life outside of it as well, and that allows you to kind of switch on and switch off. Yeah,
savage. So what's, like, you mentioned daily habits there, like what's a typical day for you look like at the minute if you're moving to Australia tomorrow?
Yeah.
So
today is the last few days an absolute rat race.
Yeah.
But normally I'd get up at probably like 6:30 in the morning, you know, come into Perpetua. You know, lucky enough to be in an environment like this where there's great athletes around me. So that actually really helps push me as well and really positive energy as well, because you do thrive off that. So to come in here is, you know, it's never a chore, whereas sometimes going to gyms for me, going out for a run does feel like a chore, but there is something about here, I suppose, that, you know, makes me want to come in, even if it's at 6:30 in the morning. So I'd come in early and get a session done, and then the last couple of months went to school, was teaching in a school in Balbriggan. So I'd go to school and then I'd come back in here at 4:30 after school. But like that, the night before, you know, would all be about, like, you know, prepping my food, making sure that I have my breakfast, lunch, dinner, that I have enough stuff, I suppose, to get me through the day, and making sure I'm making good choices there. Because, you know, if you're on the road that much, you really have to be really organised.
Snack easy.
And then, I suppose then the evening is just like, you know, spending time with good people but like when I was playing for Mayo on a Tuesday night, I'd leave school at 4:00, drive to Mayo, train in Mayo for 2 hours, and then drive back up that night. I was doing that on a Tuesday, Friday and Sunday. So that's, and all in all, I was counting up maybe like 20 hours of driving a week, which is not ideal for an athlete. So that's a part-time job. Wow. So I think I'm glad to be, you know, switching my focus back to going back to Australia, and, you know, you can really look after yourself over there and put so much time and effort into yourself, whereas there is a lot more distraction in Ireland.
Yeah, I'd say so. And what do you find? So we've mentioned like mindset, training, nutrition, recovery. What kind of comes most natural to you? Like, what's the easy one, and then what's the one where you think you kind of have to concentrate a bit more on? Because I know for me, I don't really struggle with nutrition. Like, I love eating vegetables, and I like eating meat, and then I can kind of fill in around that. Whereas there's times with more recently my training, I'm like, I don't want to do this. Yeah. So what kind of is it for you? What would be the easy one?
I think for me, when I have it, like, I suppose when I have on a Sunday, I'm writing down everything I'm doing for the week, like, and I know that certain sessions have to be done by Saturday. So for me, it's just there, it's written down, has to be done. So I probably don't struggle with that side of things training wise, because it's just, you know, it has to be done. And also you feel, you know, you're accountable to your teammates, and you're accountable to make sure that you're doing as best you can for them. And also it's essentially your job, which is, you know, you don't want to let people down there, and that pressure for performance is definitely greater once you know you're getting paid for it. So I think that changes things. I think in terms of nutrition, then it's all, for me, it's education, like educating yourself as much as possible. Daniel Davey was a guy that I worked with. He has a book out recently and stuff, and I would go to him and go about I suppose nutrition, and he would, you know, tweak things for me, and like, you know, I'd want my attention to detail in that is like, I'm always just trying to learn, I'm looking up things myself, like, but I also think that it's really important to go to experts around you and be like, sometimes you think you can solve it all yourself, but really you actually need to go, you know, if you want to get faster, go to a running coach. If you want to eat well, like, go to a nutritionist. If you want to train your mind, go to a psychologist. You know what I mean? It's about like finding people that are really good, that you can trust and that you can lean on. And I think, as I said then as well about being in this gym, there's always that support, because, you know, you are the experts in this field. So for me, I've learned an awful lot being in here even. So I think it's about going to all them little pockets of people who can help you.
Yeah, deadly. I love that. I actually wrote that in my journal on Sunday. It's amazing that people would rather listen to, learn from, or invest in people or celebrities or influence that they don't know, instead of asking the people that they're already surrounded by who know what they're talking about.
You forget, you do.
That's great that you can do that. Like, you just go, I need help in my nutrition. Who do I know?
Yeah, and sometimes people don't want to be vulnerable in that situation, and they don't want to pretend that they don't know. And I'm like, you know, we all are still learning. We all don't know loads of things, like, as in, like, unless you ask questions, unless you have that open mindset and that growing mindset, like, you're going nowhere fast. So, like, you have to just ask questions, push boundaries, and if you don't ask, you don't receive, like, so keep asking, pushing boundaries.
Good. Everyone hear that? Take it on board. Sarah's a pro athlete and she asks questions, so we all should do it. Something that we've kind of had conversations about before was your rest. And you kind of alluded to it there, like you have to get the training done, and it's just a non-negotiable for you. But how do you find balancing that kind of, like, say you were working, you were training 1 or 2 times a day, all that travel as well, like that takes it out of you. What do you find the best way to help you rest, recover, get you going again?
that's 100% the area where I need to improve.
Yeah.
Like, I don't do that enough. And I think when I'm in Australia, I think it's really important that I actually give myself time, even just time to myself, like, and not always be in people's company as well is a big one, because you can underestimate how much energy that takes away from you mentally. So I think for me, it's like I love going for walks on my own, and like sleep is a big one, but I'm not great at it either, so that's another thing I need to improve
Practice
on.
your sleep.
You know, things that relax me are like yoga, going for walks, and spending time on my own, and it's really important. Definitely don't do enough of it, and something I have written down in my journal also to improve on. But like normally, you know, when I'm at home in Mayo, I'm in a good routine, or if I'm in Collingwood, like we have access to ice baths, warm baths, like everything you need, saunas, all that stuff. So I do all that. I go to physio 2 or 3 times a week. Like, lucky enough in that situation, I'm fortunate enough to have people like that around me. But when the rat race is over here in Ireland, it's very hard to get it all in.
I'd say. Fair play. Something you've kind of said there a couple of times as well, like you write stuff down, and we had a good conversation about this, about your phone as well, and I love that. I've remembered that, and I've actually started doing it too, where you write stuff down and then you just constantly look at it and start working towards that. Where did you pick that up? Or
yeah, so I went to this I've been to like numerous psychologists, but like you only connect with very few, and that's the same in life. You connect with some people, you don't connect with others. But there's this woman called Marion Byrne, and she's written books as well, and she was involved with the women's GPA, so I had access to her through Mayo. So I went to her a few years ago, and she's still a person that I bounce things off all the time, but it's very casual. Like, you know, we go for a coffee, and you don't feel like you're kind of, you know, how you feeling
that's
today.
exactly what you need.
Do you know, it is exactly what you need, and it's just a non-judgmental point of view. And then I also went over to Australia, and I asked her what she had studied, because I said, you know, I actually look at her probably as a role model too, and say, like, I'd love to have, you know, I'm grateful for the perspective she's helped kind of shape me, I suppose, shape my perspective in some ways. Obviously you do it on your own and through life experience, you learn a lot, but she has been really instrumental in that. So I basically said to her, what did you study? So she said she had done kind of coaching. So I also went and did a course in life coaching. I did a course in NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming. So it's all about the subconscious mind, how we communicate with ourselves and others. Yeah. So I did that when I was over in Australia, when I was playing last year as well. And like, I cannot explain this. I learned so much, and I learned that like it, you know, the way we are completely in control of us, like, and you know, what we want is what we get, what we think is what happens. So like, I think the power of that, and to know that there's actually like so much science behind that, it's been great, because I actually know how to change my focus now. Like, if I'm in a game and I'm about to take a free, and I'm saying to myself, I'm going to put this ball wide, like, I'm certainly going to put the ball wide. So like, even when I'm not feeling confident, like, I'd be like, the ball is going over the black spot, the ball is going over the black spot, even though like. And I also changed my body language, because your physiology changes your psychology. So like, there's all that kind of stuff, I suppose. And you know, you hear these kind of cliche things thrown around all the time, but when you actually really look into it, there's an awful lot behind it.
Cliches are cliches for a reason, aren't they?
Yeah. So anyway, so she told me to do a vision board, basically, where I write out everything that I kind of want to achieve over, you know, a year period, 6 months, whatever you want. Mine was a 2-year kind of plan, and I drew it out, and I basically took a picture of it and put it as my screensaver. And I suppose it subconsciously goes into my mind. Then when I look at my screensaver, I see something like that, you know, things that you put on the long finger. It's just like, okay, yeah, I've written that down, that I need to do that. And it doesn't have to be sports related. It could be life, friends, family, relationships, whatever it has to be, whatever it is that it's going to make you happy. And I think it's about analysing all the areas of your life, and all the things, like, you know, your career, your sport, your relationships, the people who are positive, negative influence in your life, your lifestyle, your physical environment. There's so much things to it, and it's about being like, okay, am I happy in all those areas? If I'm not happy in one, it's going to affect the other. So just looking at that from, I suppose, the broader perspective, I found really important as well.
Class. That's unreal. Gee, I took a lot from that, and I kind of need a second to process it there. That's brilliant. So yeah, I started writing that down, and it's funny, as soon as you write something down like that, and then you just casually see it every day without it, like kind of like you said, like not in a formal setting, it does just something else clicks, and it becomes much more natural and part of what you do every single day. Love that. Everyone can learn from
I think like, you know, the hard work that goes in, and people get these lucky breaks and these lucky opportunities, but like it's not lucky, like it's the culmination of all these little small things that you do all the time, and all of a sudden an opportunity comes your way. So it's just sitting back and taking stock and seeing where you're at, because sometimes you think you're doing great and you're not, and sometimes you think you're not doing great and you are. So it's important to acknowledge that.
Cool. Let's go off topic a little bit. So you're quite well known.
Don't know.
All the Instagram followers. In here, there's maybe not as many people who know you, but I'd say like you mentioned, like whenever you go home, there's probably a lot of people who know you. And what's it like down in Australia? Are you well enough known down there too? Like, how do you manage that public perception? And
I suppose working with the psychologist was huge for me from a young age. When I had anything like that, like, you know, I might hear a rumor about myself, or I'd hear something and I'd be like you know, if you hear something enough, you start to believe that it's true. So it was always me being like, okay, right, is that their problem? Is that, you know, their insecurity, or is this actually my problem? And kind of like sitting back and being objective all the time about, you know, things like that, you know, the pressures that you felt there. Whereas I think now I can kind of emotionally detach myself from it. But I just think that, like, while sport and all that, like, it is in the public eye and it's great and all that, but like, it's, you know, you or I are no different, or anyone else. Like, you know, that's just my passion and that's just what I do. So it's like, you know, you're working in here in Perpetua, like, and, you know, that's just as important and just as admirable. And I look at you sometimes and I say, I don't know how they do what they do. And like, you know, people might look at me and say, how does she do that? But like, you know, it's all, I suppose, a different way.
Same but different.
Same but different. But like, it's just because it's in the public eye that people sometimes look at you differently. And I always just say, like, if people that sat down and had a conversation with me, like, you know, I would hope that we would get on and that they'd like me. But I can't worry about that outside noise, because like, it is, at the end of the day, it's perception. And social media as well is just, you know, it's toxic in so many ways, like, and it's great, and there's opportunities, there's business opportunities, it's a great platform to put out really good education, but it's also so much stuff there that you just like, oh, like, it's not good to be taking it into your mind. Like, even when I wake up in the morning, I don't touch my phone for 45 minutes. I have all my notifications on my phone turned off. Don't want to see it, don't want to be on my phone, don't want to be invested in someone else's life. Like, I need to focus on me, and I think everyone does. And if once you start focusing on someone else, like, you know, comparison's the thief of joy. So, you know, I think you find yourself sometimes slipping in and out of that, depending on where you're at in your life. And I just think it can at times be really toxic. Yeah,
that's savage. I love that too. Another thing we kind of touched on last week, 2 weeks ago, was like, whenever you're training, and you touched on it briefly there at the start, like that mindset. And you mentioned to me before something about like the difference between good and great is like being able to have the blinkers, and whenever it starts to get hard, and that conversation in your head, like, what's going on. So whenever you're training, and I've seen you train and I've seen you running and you're working hard and that, like, what we all go through that same thing where it starts to really, really hurt, and it starts to really, really suck, and you just don't want to be there anymore. Like, what's the conversation in your head? Like, for me, I think that, like, there's a point where you're just like, okay, this is that, and all it is sometimes is just an extra second of a push that is the difference between you winning and losing for me. So like, I would say, like, you could listen to some of the conversations in my head, and like, you know, like any human, it's like, oh my God, what am I doing? I hate this. Like, running's just the worst thing in the world. I'm just going to quit sport. That's it. Like, there's so many things going on. But then there's the part of me then that stops and says, Sarah, cop on, stop talking to yourself like that. And then, like, even when I was, say, doing the yo-yo test the last day, like, you know, I kept saying to myself, right, it was at the point where, say, last year I got a score of, I don't know,
whatever I got. And at that point I was like, this is where it's going to hurt now, this is where the struggle is. And I kept saying to myself, one more step, and I kept saying, you're a strong runner, you're a strong runner, you're a strong runner. But like, I also deep down wasn't believing that, but I was telling myself it, so it was making me run faster. So I think there's always that time, even when I'm on them treadmills and they're the ones where you're doing a shred class, it's like you're in there and you're like, oh my god, this is hurting, and someone says put the speed to 18, you're like, oh, I can go a bit more, like, and I have to. And I'm like, I just think that the only person you can't fool is yourself. So if you don't push, it's just one more second, one more step for me. It's always just that extra tiny step. And I think that just goes a long way. And then, you know, you go into games with confidence then, because you're like, I know I've pushed past mental barriers before. I do it all the time. I've trained my brain to do that, so I can do it. And it's the same if something goes wrong in a game. You're like, okay, cop on now, like back to basics again. And it's all about then going back to basics for me.
Just practicing that adversity and
practicing talking to yourself in a positive way. It can be hard, like, at times.
Course, yeah.
But you know, if you can practice it enough, it'll just become second nature and habit.
And how do you ever come away from training sessions thinking, I didn't work hard enough?
Yeah, 100%.
And how do you deal with that?
I just know, I'm like, okay, I again write it down and be like, why? What was going through my head? Was it a mental thing? Did I not prepare well enough for training? Am I not hydrated? Have I not slept well? Like, I'll question myself on them first, and then I'll say, have I overtrained, or am I, what's going on for me? So, and once I have the answer to that, when I have written it down again, I'm kind of like, okay, I'm reassured to the fact that you can't go hard at it all the time, and some things do need to be low and high impact. But it's just about when you're making a decision to go hard, like, go hard. But if it doesn't work out for you, so one day it's like, right, tick that box, it's done, but cross it out and move on to the next day. And you can't dwell on, you know, them small kind of things, but the biggest thing is consistency over time. So as long as you can keep plugging away, and like nutrition, training, whatever it is, it's a lifestyle change. And like, you get it to the point, like you were saying, you're not struggling with your nutrition because you love eating vegetables and stuff. Like, I'm the same, like, but it took me a while to get there, because I definitely didn't have that relationship with food before, and food is also emotion at times. So sometimes, you know, if you're eating a lot of bad food, like, stop and ask yourself what's going on for you. Like, I always had to do that for a long time, just to question, like, you know, was it emotion? Why was I eating like loads of food that didn't need, like, and what, like, you know, you need to, when you don't eat well, you don't train well. Like, it really is, there's a big correlation there. So I think it's about understanding all that side of things as well. So
it all comes down to like a lot of self-awareness and reflection, and knowing where you're at and why you're at, and how to get out of it if you need to get out of it, and how to maintain it if you need to maintain it.
Yeah, I think self-awareness is huge. Like, as in, if you can get yourself to that place, like, you can answer a lot of your own questions. And but it does take time and an awful lot of work. Like, and you have to work on your mind so much to get there and to understand it. Like, if you look back on my diary and the stuff that even if I, like, you know, was at training, like, sometimes you're at training and you're not being told that you're doing that well, and you're kind of looking for other people's validation. And like, I'd go home then and be like, I was essentially waiting for my coach to tell me I did well. I remember for a few weeks over in Australia, but like, I was basically putting my own life in someone else's hands, because I was waiting for him to tell me I was doing well, to know that I could keep pushing, and I wasn't getting that. So then when I wrote it down, I was like, that's actually just pure emotion, and there's actually no sense to that at all. Like, I need to, if I want to know how I'm doing, ask questions. Ask, am I doing well? Ask what I can do better, and get feedback, and take out that paranoia. But sometimes when you think about what's going on in your head, it's so much emotion filled and so much feelings there. But when you put it down on paper, the emotion is gone, and it's just black and white, and it makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, love it. So going forward then, what age are you, 25?
25, yeah.
You're still young. What's the goal? What's the long-term plan? What's the top of the pyramid like?
Like, so obviously the kind of mindset stuff, like, you can, I suppose, clearly tell that I'm interested in that. So that is something that I will continue to, like, I've been taking on, like, over lockdown, I was taking on people, clients, and just like working with, I suppose, whatever, it didn't matter, business person, whatever they were, sport, you know, a young girl, an older man, it didn't matter what it was. It was just like, so I did a good bit of that. I probably had like maybe 10 or 15 clients over lockdown, but then it was kind of like, then I was doing the teaching as well at the same time, so I couldn't maintain it. So I'll probably continue to do that now when I'm over in Australia, probably further developing that, further study. I would like to do something. Health and fitness is always interesting for me as well, and I want to learn more about that as well. Probably first to better myself, and I suppose that's a question you have to ask yourself. Do you want to do it to better yourself, or do you want to do it to better others? I would like to better others in the mindset, probably in the strength and conditioning side of things. I just want to educate myself more. So a bit of that. I have signed a 2-year contract with Australia, so I'll do 6 months here, 6 months at home. And then I'll do that for the next 2 years anyway. Class. And then same team, yeah. And then after that, I'm like, I'll play sport until I'm absolutely broken anyway, because once it's once it's done, and that's it. You know, you can never go back then. So for now, I suppose just focusing on short-term stuff, but we'll see.
Love it. And last one, who's going to win the All-Ireland this year?
Oh, the $1 million question. To be honest with you now, like, it would be Mayo. It would be classic Mayo to win the All-Ireland this year. Like, you know, the COVID Cup. That's exactly what they would want. They'd want to do it. They want to do it when no one can celebrate. I don't know. They'd have to close the borders and rip the place up. But I don't know. I suppose I'm going to have to say Mayo anyway. But I'd say it'll be a very tight one. But fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
Be watching it in quarantine.
I know. Yeah. Sarah, where can people find you on the interwebs? Instagram,
I suppose. Yeah. Sarah Rowe 123 is my name. I obviously did that when I was, I'd say, 15 years of age. It used to be Sarah Rowe 1 2 3 4 5 6, and then I realised I could change my name, so I took out the 1 2 3 4 5 6. So yeah.
Oh, thanks a mil.
Thanks for your time.
And enjoy Australia.
Thank you. I will.
See you soon. Guys, once again, thanks for joining us. If you enjoyed it, like it, share it, tell your friends. And the more people that know, the better guests we can get on. We've started off pretty high here with Sarah early on. And we'll see you soon.